Hey guys, it's Clovis, and today we're going to do an Immortal boss deck. So, we all know Immortals have these OP features about them. They all seem to have quite strong effects. And also, just the effect when, when you destroy them and they lay Crush on the field, then they're strong on Crush can also make for a difficult duel. Half of this duel is kind of the field it's on, which would be mostly Crush, which we'll look into after the deck. But yeah, just the concept of having all these strong monsters laying down field that stops you from being able to play your strong monsters, so that they can the enemy boss head can get a huge advantage field-wise, movement and attack and defense advantage, while you can't really play anything as the main purpose of this. But because it's a boss, I decided to give it some boss-like cards. Go up the way. See, we've got 3 Ryokus. We're just kind of doing a better version of the Chakra final boss, because he's got all these strong monsters, but instead I'm basically giving this guy Immortals. So I've got 3 Ryoku and 3 Megamorph, because the Immortals don't actually have a power-up for themselves, they only have the elemental ones. You can see, apart from Paralyzing Potion, which is just a stun card, they all only have one equip. So apart from those, I've added 1 Bright Castle, because we have the 2 strongest monsters in this deck are Bright. We got Immortal Creature and Carat Idol. They're both light. They're the strongest cards in the deck, so I figured I may as well add a Bright Castle for those. You can also even potentially stick it on Servant of Catabolism, so considering he has 9 light cards, 1 Bright Castle seems fair. Any other card he can stick Ryoku, or a multiple of Ryoku, or Megamorph, or a multiple of Megamorph, or any combination of these to make his monsters extremely strong, while, also whittling your life points down with the Ryokus, just like the final bosses like to do. I gave him 3 Royal Decrees because, well, first of all, he doesn't have any other traps, so he can actually use Royal Decree, and that way it's hard to really stop the Immortals when they're just going after you. The way the map's designed, when he plays the Royal Decrees behind him, it's really, really difficult to get rid of them, so once he lays down a Royal Decree, then you just can't use traps unless you have something like Heavy Storm or Harpy's Feather Duster, but the likeliness of having one of those cards by the time you get to this boss is extremely low. And even if you do play one of those cards, like on the first turn or at some point, then you're missing out on turn against this guy when he plays quite aggressive and is just going to constantly bring out damage. It's not too much of an issue if he plays more than 1 Royal Decree, even though it's redundant. He doesn't have any other face-down cards he really wants to play, with the exception of Magic Drain, which I gave 3 in this deck, because the Chakra AI uses Magic Drain quite efficiently compared to any other AI in the game. I think most of the AIs don't use it at all. Maybe Deckmaster K might use it, but I think Chakra AI is the best at using it. And this is not only does it shut you down from being able to play your cards, but it lets him bring out his stronger cards more often, which is really important because he kind of has summoning power issues. You notice, like, I could have changed this leader ability, the leader here, to be something like Jowls of Dark Demise to change the terrain, open the opponent's card. But I figured the level cost reduction is better. That way everything that this deck leader plays is 1 star lower. So if he plays Jowls of Dark Demise on the first turn, then he's only using 1 power, then he regenerates 3, so he'll have 6 on the second turn. If he plays something like Slate Warrior on the first turn, that's only 3, so he'll keep, the extra that he had. And with Rigorous Lever, which is normally 3 stars, if he plays that for 2, he actually keeps 1 of the stars he regenerates, like, the same turn that he played it. And honestly, Rigorous Lever and Slate Warrior are like the 2 best cards for him to open, so between having 6 total between them, we also have a few Soul Leaders, and we got some of the lower level stuff, we really do want him to play an Immortal on the first turn. Optimally, because we want this boss to be as difficult as possible, we'd kind of want a Rigorous Lever or Slate Warrior first turn. Slate Warrior is obviously better, ultimately because of the damage and the extra power up buff. Then with Ryokus and or Megamorphs is just really, really strong. Like, if he plays Slate Warrior in the first turn, that's 2400 on Crush. flip it up, it's 2900, and that's before any power-ups whatsoever. So not only can you not beat that on Crush, but even if you manage to get it off Crush, it's actually quite powerful. So a lot of these cards are, he won't use a Soul Eater effect unless you force it into defense mode and don't kill it on the same turn. But it's still, you know, a problem to kill it, even though it has 0 defense before you do that, because if you kill it, it's going to lay down Crush anyways. The Jowls of Dark Demise can indefinitely take control of your monster until it's destroyed, which is somewhat useful. And Servant of Catabolism, it's not that strong, but if he manages to put that in defense at some point, because it's a weaker card, then he'll just get more summoning power out of it, so I thought, why not? And, you know, Shake Snatch, not always super useful, but if you have a really strong deck leader, then this really punishes you. Otherwise, you'll probably end up putting it in defense, and then it's 3100 defense because of Carat Idol deck leader. So 4 stars, 3100 defense is like the worst case scenario, which is pretty damn good if he ever does that. And 3 Time Eater, but obviously this is just for the having the monsters in the deck. I wanted as many strong Immortals in the deck as possible, so even if this isn't as good as Slate Warrior, yeah, it's still decent. Plays it for 5 stars, 1900 attack, so why not? And it looks pretty cool. That's pretty much it. I don't expect him to ever really play any of these other cards in defense mode, but he sometimes does. And if he does, then their effect starts going off, and that makes the whole deck even stronger, but I'm not expecting him to do that. I'm kind of building this deck around the fact he's going to play them aggressively. So I've got, yeah, the Magic Drains and all the equips and the 3 Royal Decree, so you can't use traps against them. And here is the map. You can see it's pretty scary looking. It's kind of like the Stonehenge, but not the Stonehenge. The reason why it's laid out similar to the Stonehenge, like, let's say if you do this, is that the AI will function quite normally, because it's, like, the Chakra AI is kind of built to play around this labyrinth setup. So I kept the map as similar to it as possible. Then I blocked these off so that you can't go around and try and juke him, because what he's going to do in the first turn is he will start to move forward. I've discovered in testing, for some reason, I don't know exactly why this is, but even if you go forward, like normally if you play forward against this guy, he doesn't seem to actually move forward, he'll just stay there, but I think maybe to do with a Crush or something, I don't 100% know why, but even if you play forward and you play monster forward, he will move forward and challenge it anyways. Maybe that has to do with what's in his hand and what he can play on the first turn, like if he can play a strong monster on the first hand that isn't Gate Dig or something like that. That's probably why he moves forward. I don't 100% know, like I do not know, so I'm not going to pretend to know, but it's probably one of those two, because I don't know what else it would be, so yeah. Point is, first turn he'll move forward. If you do have stuff in the middle, he kind of stays there, but if you move to the sides, he starts to move into the middle and control this bit, so that's why the top left and top right are labyrinth, so you can't go around it. He kind of moves, he kind of controls this middle area, and you have to play around him. He usually forces you off the middle area because he'll just play something really powerful that you can't get past, and you have no way of really dealing with it, unless you play traps, in which case he might have Royal Decree, he might play that behind him. And the good thing about when he plays Royal Decree behind him, or even Magic Drain, is he gets to keep more summoning power, so he's more likely to play something stronger the next turn. Down at the bottom left and bottom right corners, I just added 1 labyrinth here so that you have a tighter space to make it even more difficult. And of course the middle's Crush, for obvious reasons. He has all these Immortals, so it makes them extra powerful, and it stops you from being able to play anything strong. The problem with the Skull Knight duel is that the middle's Crush, and you can just play all these really weak cards and just hit him three or 4 times and kill him really easily. But with this AI, with the Immortals on this map, you can't do that. If you try and play all this weak stuff in the middle, he'll just crush you completely. No pun intended, he'll just absolutely destroy you, he'll just attack you, deal a shit ton of damage, because all of your monsters will be really weak, and all of his will be very strong. So yeah. This opponent was one of the toughest to beat. I kind of had to get lucky to beat it, otherwise I would have had to change a deck, or use something that has a lot more terrain change, or a lot more stun potential, and a lot of strong cards to beat it, but I did get lucky eventually. But ultimately this is supposed to be hard to beat. I don't really know, especially with the AI's limits, and you can do a lot of like tricks with the AI and cheese out a victory. this was like one of the hardest opponents I was able to make, just by, you know, giving him a bunch of Ryokus and a bunch of Immortals on this field and stopping you from actually be able to really do anything. The only thing you can really do is try and get around his cards and then attack his deck leader really fast. Or another strategy you can do is bait him off the crush tiles and try and do like life point damage and sacrifice your monsters, like, because they're guaranteed, if they're stronger than the Immortals and they kill it, they'll lay crush and it's pretty much guaranteed to die. If you keep doing that until he runs out of life points, that's also a way of victory, but if you do that, it gives him more room and more space, more time to play more strong shit to eventually overwhelm you with. So you really need to like execute that strategy like before it just ultimately fails and he has like 5 Immortals out with like 3,000 attack and you just can't really do anything. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this duel. I know you guys, some of you guys probably like the really OP stuff, the really strong stuff, so this is for you guys. This is what the final boss should be, I think. It's a lot harder, I think, than the other bosses. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next video. bye.